Carl and Grover. It's from a beautiful storybook called Storytime Character Building Stories for Children. Okay, let's start. Carl was trying hard not to cry. After all, was almost 9 years old, and he knew 9-year-old boys didn't cry, but he felt like crying. He buried his face into Grover's soft brown fur and felt better. Grover was his very best friend. Grover didn't care that Carl couldn't run and play like other boys and girls at school. When Carl went tap, 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 tapping down the street with his crutches, Grover didn't seem to mind at all. He followed close behind, or sometimes he would even run ahead as fast as his 4 feet would carry him, and then come racing back to Carl. And now Carl didn't know what he was going to do, because Grover had to have a license, and the license costs $12.50, and Carl didn't have $12.50. Carl didn't have even 50 cents. The Animal Control Office had told Carl there was a new rule passed by the city. Council required all dogs to be registered and have a license. The license would be a small metal tag that would be fastened to the collar around the dog's neck. If Grover didn't have the license by next week, the man told Carl that he would have to take the dog to the animal shelter. No wonder Carl felt like crying. What would he do without Grover? How could he possibly buy a license? By next week, Carl was going to lose his best friend because he didn't have any money to keep his faithful companion. Just then, Carl remembered something he had heard his pastor say in church. The pastor had said that Jesus always hears our prayers. He had said that if boys and girls will pray to Jesus, he will hear and answer their prayers. That's what I'll do, Carl said out loud. I'll pray and ask Jesus to help me keep Grover. And then he whispered a prayer. Carl felt better. He looked up and saw Tommy coming down the street. Now, Grover was Carl's very best friend, but Tommy was his very best human friend. Carl felt so much better after his short prayer to Jesus that he even smiled when he saw Tommy coming towards him, especially when he saw the big grin on Tommy's face. It was clear that Tommy was a very, very happy boy. Why are you so happy? Carl asked. I'm on my way to Mason's hardware store, Tommy told him. I'm going to look at a new bike in the window one more time. It's a really great bike. I've been saving my money to buy it. I've almost have enough. I think I'll have enough to buy it next week. Carl was happy for his friend. He couldn't ride a bicycle himself, of course, since he had to walk on crutches, but he could imagine how fun it would be. Tommy sat on the grass beside Carl and began to rub Grover's head. Grover rolled over and wagged his tail. Carl told Tommy about Grover needing a license and how he had prayed to Jesus to help him. Jesus is going to let me keep Grover, he said. I know he is. A few minutes later, Tommy got up and on his way to the hardware store. But as he walked down the street, he kept thinking about Grover and Carl. He sure doesn't have much to make him happy, Tommy thought to himself. It would break his heart to give up Grover. Just then he arrived at the store where the precious bicycle stood. It was great just to look at it and think about flying down the street, holding on the handlebars. But then a picture of Grover and Carl filled Tommy's mind. He sighed. Someone has to buy that license, he thought to himself. Besides, it'll be fun to help Jesus answer Carl's prayer. He stood in front of the window thinking very hard. At last, Tommy made a decision. The bicycle will just have to wait a little longer, he thought. Running back to where he had left Carl a few minutes before, Tommy said, "Carl, could Grover stay at my house just for tonight? Can I borrow him? I don't have a dog. It would be fun to keep Grover for a little while." Carl tightened his arm around his faithful friend. He wasn't sure he wanted Grover staying overnight at Tommy's. "Won't your mother mind?" he asked. "She won't mind," Tommy assured him. "Do you promise to take good care of him?" Carl asked. "You won't forget to feed him or make sure he has lots of water to drink?" "Of course, I'll take good care of him," Tommy insisted. "Okay," Carl agreed. "If you're sure you'll take good care of him, but only for tonight." The next morning, Carl sat on the top step of his back porch, watching the neighborhood children play. He missed Grover, and he hoped Tommy would bring him back soon. He knew Jesus was going to answer his prayer. He had faith. Then, all at once, Grover came bounding around the corner with a hop and jump. The excited dog was in his master's arms. "Grover!" Carl exclaimed as his friend licked his face and wriggled happily. Then, as Carl was rubbing Grover's fur, he felt something around the dog's neck. It was a brand new collar. Carl looked at it carefully. Attached to the collar was a small metal disc, the license that the city had required. Carl let out a happy shout. Jesus had answered his prayer. "Thank you, Jesus," he prayed. A few blocks away, Tommy was sitting on his bedroom floor counting quarters and nickels and dimes. Beside him, turned upside down, was the jar he had been keeping his money in for weeks, as he had saved for the shining bicycle in the window of Martian's hardware store. "I'll have to keep saving a little longer," Timmy thought to himself as he finished counting the coins. "But I'm glad I helped Jesus answer Carl's prayer. It was fun buying Grover's license and collar, almost as much fun as it will be to ride my new bicycle." As he poured the quarters and nickels and dimes back into the jar, he put in the far corner of his closet. Think about it. Have you ever prayed asking Jesus for something? Did he answer your prayers? Suppose a new bicycle was sold before Timmy could finish saving enough money to buy it. Do you think he would have been sorry he helped his friend? Why or why not?